You are the sky, not the clouds. The temple was surrounded by a silence so pure it seemed to have weight. It was the kind of silence that not only hushes sounds but also soothes the mind. High on a hill forgotten by time, the wooden walls creaked softly with each breeze, as if breathing together with the mountain. Akira, the young disciple, sat facing Master Daizan. He bore 17 winters marked deep in his soul, yet in his eyes lived storms from many lifetimes. He had come to this corner of the world seeking answers, but had only found questions that pricked his chest like thorns. "Master," he said in a trembling voice, "sometimes I feel so lost I don't know if I am the one who thinks, or if I am a thought being thought. How can I know who I really am, when every emotion I feel pulls me like a river without banks?" Daizan did not answer immediately. He simply looked up at the sky. It was clear, infinitely clear, but far away, dense clouds were slowly forming. They were beautiful in their mystery, whimsical in shape. One looked like a sleeping dragon, another a crying child. They drifted without any apparent direction, but they were not the sky. They only passed through it. "Look at the sky, Akira," the master whispered. "What do you see?" "I see the clouds, many clouds, and the sky. It's behind them, but barely noticeable." Daizan nodded. "That's how your mind works. Thoughts and emotions are like those clouds. They form, shift, dissolve. They cry rain, they pass by, they leave. But you are the sky. You have always been the sky." The young man was silent. Something in those words could not be understood by the mind, but by the marrow of the soul. "But sometimes I feel anger, fear, desire, sadness, and I think I am those things," Akira insisted. "When an emotion overwhelms me, I drown in it. How can I not be it if I feel it so strongly?" "I will tell you a story," said the master, narrowing his eyes calmly. "A story that begins today and will end when you recognize yourself in the sky, not the cloud." Akira leaned forward, as if his soul was asking him to listen with his whole body. "Many years ago, before you were born, before this temple rose on the rock, there was a small lake hidden among the bamboo. Its surface reflected days and nights, seasons and stars, but it never stopped being water. One day," Daizan continued, "a traveler approached the lake, his face twisted with anguish. Tears fell endlessly, and each sob was like a knife breaking the sky's reflection on the water. 'I am broken,' said the traveler. 'I am made of pain, memories, shame. I am everything I do not want to be.' The lake, in its silence, did not reply. It simply remained a lake. But when the traveler knelt, exhausted from his crying, something happened. He saw how the tears, upon falling, dissolved into the water, leaving no trace. He understood then that it was not the pain that defined his being, but the space that held it. 'You are that lake, Akira,' said the master. 'Or better yet, you are the sky that embraces everything without clinging to anything.' The young man closed his eyes, and for a moment, just a moment, he felt within himself a space that did not cry, did not fear, did not desire. A space blue, open, unchanging. 'But then, what do I do with the emotions?' he asked in an almost inaudible voice. 'Observe them,' Daizan answered. 'Name them gently. This is fear. This is anger. This is desire. Watch them like clouds. Don't try to catch them. Don't reject them. Let them pass.' Akira looked up at the sky again. The dragon-shaped cloud had dissolved into the wind. The crying child no longer existed. Only the sky remained, blue, silent, witness to all and owner of nothing. 'When you learn to live as the sky,' said the master, rising slowly, 'nothing can possess you. not even yourself. And without another word, he walked among the trees, leaving the young man with a heartbeat that came not from the body, but from the very center of his being. That day, Akira did not need to understand. He only needed to remember. That night, Akira did not sleep, not from insomnia or restlessness, but because something new, or perhaps very old, had been kindled within him. He remained seated on the temple's porch, wrapped in the mist rising from the forest. He wasn't thinking of anything, yet everything was speaking to him. The whisper of leaves, the distant call of an owl, the slow breath of the earth. Everything was so simple, and yet so vast. For the first time in many years, Akira did not cling to his sadness. He felt it, of course. It was there, like a damp breeze in his chest. But he no longer tried to flee from it, nor did he embrace it. He simply watched it pass. "I am the sky," he told himself slowly, "and this is just a cloud." And with that phrase, silence became home. At dawn, Daizan was already awake, sweeping dry leaves from the zendo. It was a humble gesture, repeated every morning, which the master performed as if it were a sacred act. When Akira approached, there was no greeting, only looks that already understood each other without words. "Master," the young man said, "sometimes I feel like I'm not making progress, like I'm going back to the same place, as if my emotions are waves that keep coming back. Does that mean I'm not moving forward?" Daizan stopped, leaning on his old bamboo staff. "Don't confuse the sky with the weather," he replied. "The sky doesn't change. What changes is what passes through it." After a pause, he added, "Every time you choose to observe without judgment, every time you breathe instead of reacting, you clean the mirror a little more. Don't expect the clouds to disappear. Just learn not to fear them." Akira nodded. He wanted to believe it. He felt those words had roots, even if he didn't yet know where they would grow. The master set the broom aside and headed toward the forest. "Come with me," he said. "Today we'll learn something that can't be taught with words." They walked in silence for a long while. They climbed moss-covered paths, passed by a stream where the stones sang, and finally reached an old wooden platform open to the sky. It was the highest point on the mountain. From there, you could see everything: the valley, the temple, the running clouds, the horizon. Daizan sat cross-legged. Akira followed. "Now look," the master whispered, "and don't think, just be the sky." Akira looked, and something happened. It wasn't a revelation or a vision. There were no beams of light or tears. It just stopped. The idea of being someone stopped. The need to change anything stopped. Even the search stopped. For a few eternal seconds, he was pure witness. And in that witness, everything floated ownerless. The anxiety that used to tighten his chest was now just a mist in the distance. The fear of the future, a leaf carried by the wind. The guilt over the past, a cloud that had already dissolved. Only the sky remained, and the sky had no shape, no story, no wound, only presence. When Akira returned from that state, he didn't know how much time had passed. Daizan looked at him with a half-smile. "You felt it," the master said. "Yes," Akira replied. His eyes filled with something that was neither sadness nor joy. It was deeper, like the soul had finally recognized its own reflection. "Don't try to hold on to it," Daizan added. "It will come back, not because you seek it, but because it's already within you." They began their slow descent. Every step seemed to touch the earth in a new way. Every sound was now part of an invisible fabric. Akira did not speak, but inside him, something whispered softly, "I am the sky. Everything else is just clouds." Days passed, and Akira began to live with a new awareness. He didn't become enlightened. His thoughts and emotions didn't disappear. But something inside him had changed deeply. He no longer confused himself with them. He was learning to observe them from a distance, like watching the current of a river without jumping in. One afternoon, while sweeping the leaves in the temple's inner garden, Akira felt sadness come visiting again, without warning. There was no clear reason, just a heavy, gray feeling, like a cloud settling over the heart for no apparent cause. Before, he would have tried to run away. He would have feared being trapped in it. But this time, he set the broom aside and sat quietly beneath the old plum tree in the courtyard. He inhaled, he exhaled, and whispered softly to himself, "This too shall pass." The sadness was like a gentle rain. It dampened his thoughts, blurred his vision, but it had no roots. He watched it from that vast space he had discovered on the mountaintop, an inner sky that needed no defense, no rejection. "I see you," he murmured, "and that's okay." For hours he didn't move. He did nothing. He simply stayed with it, without judgment, without struggle. And when the sun began to set, the sadness faded away. Not by magic, not by force. It just dissolved. When Daizan found him, Akira was still sitting there, eyes open and calm. "Today you learned what no book can teach," the master said, sitting beside him. "You understood that emotion is not the enemy, just a visitor." "Yes," Akira replied. "It came, stayed, I watched it, and it left. That's how it is with everything. Everything." The master's voice was barely a breath. "Pain, desire, joy, nostalgia, all passes. But you, the watcher, remain. That is the difference between living asleep and living awake." A crow cawed from the temple roof. The air filled with the scent of night-blooming flowers, and the sky, growing darker by the minute, began to sprinkle with stars. Akira turned to his master. "Sometimes that vastness scares me," he confessed. "The sky is so big, I feel like I could get lost in it." "That's because you still think of yourself as small," Daizan said. "But you're not a drop within the sky. You are the sky itself, without edges, without end. And no emotion, no matter how big it seems, can contain you." Akira lowered his gaze. He still struggled to believe he was worthy of that truth. He felt too human, too fragile. As if reading his thoughts, the master added, "To be the sky doesn't mean not to cry. It doesn't mean never to doubt. It means not being swept away by every cloud that crosses your horizon." Silence. They stayed there, listening to the night song of insects. No more words were needed. Something in the air sealed their understanding. That night, for the first time, Akira dreamed he was flying. Not like a bird, not like the wind, but like the sky itself. Infinite, whole, full of everything, empty of everything, free. Dawn slipped quietly through the temple's pillars. The incense still burned on the altars, and the bronze bowl echoed softly after the day's first strike. Akira walked barefoot along the wooden halls, his gaze serene, as if his steps floated between sleep and waking. Since he had begun observing his thoughts like clouds, everything had a different rhythm. Things remained what they were, but no longer controlled him. Hunger, desire, memory, guilt, they came, spoke briefly, and left. He no longer built houses inside them. He simply sat at the door, listening. That day, Master Daizan asked him to accompany him to the village. It was unusual. The master rarely left the temple, but Akira didn't ask why. He followed, like one who follows the current of a river whose destination is still unknown. They slowly descended the mountain. The sun barely touched the treetops, and dew glittered like pearls over the tea fields. Neither spoke, but the silence between them was not empty. It was whole, like a bowl that needs no filling. The village was alive with voices, laughter, and rush. Children running, merchants shouting their offers, elders sitting in the sun telling stories no one heard. For Akira, it felt like stepping back into a former life, one where emotions ruled the body and thoughts sentenced without appeal. "Do you see all this?" the master finally said. "Every person you see here believes they are their thoughts, their story, their wound, their desire. But they are not. They have simply forgotten." "Why do we forget, master?" Daizan stopped in front of a well where a woman was drawing water. "Because the sky is so vast," he replied. "It frightens us, and the clouds give us the illusion of shape, outline, identity. We cling to them because they make us feel like someone. Even if that someone suffers, it's better than the emptiness." "And how do you live knowing you are not the clouds?" The master looked at him deeply. "With lightness, with compassion, with laughter. When you know you are not anger, you can see it without fear. When you know you are not fear, you can hold it without being consumed. When you know you are not your story, then you can live free." Akira nodded, but something stirred in his chest, like a dark cloud that still lingered. They crossed the market and stopped before an elderly woman selling flowers. Her hands were worn, her eyes cloudy, but her smile was clear as newborn water. The master bowed and bought a small bouquet of lotus flowers. "For whom?" Kira asked. "For the altar," Daizan replied. "But also for you." "For me?" "Yes, the lotus grows from the mud. Did you know? Its roots lie buried in the darkest muck, but its flower never gets stained. That is your essence. That is the sky you are." Akira held the lotus in his hands, fragile and perfect, and for the first time he understood something deeper than any lesson before. His pain was not a mistake. His sadness was not a stain. His emotions were not enemies. All were part of the path. All helped him remember. All passed. But he remained. That night, back at the temple, he placed the lotus in a bowl of water before the altar. He gazed at it for a long time, not like someone worshipping a flower, but like someone recognizing in it the reflection of their own awakening. The fifth moon since Akira's arrival at the temple was also the quietest. Not because there was no noise, but because he no longer lived so close to the noise within. For years, his mind had been like a shaken drum, thoughts pounding without rhythm, emotions shouting as if fighting for attention. But now, something inside him had opened. A space, a refuge, a sky. Not constant, of course. Sometimes it clouded over. Sometimes it rained hard. But even in the midst of emotional storms, Akira remembered to look up, or rather, look inward. One day, while preparing the altar offerings, he caught himself smiling for no reason. Not out of joy, but out of recognition. Life flowed around him, and he no longer tried to control it. He simply was part of it. It was in the middle of that calm that a letter arrived. A thin sheet of paper, awkwardly folded, delivered by a traveler, came from his younger brother, and with it the clouds returned with force. "Father is sick. He hasn't spoken in days. Mother cries all the time. I don't know if he will survive. Please come back." Akira read the letter with his heart in a fist. Emotions burst like storms long held inside. Guilt, fear, anxiety, doubt. What if it was already too late? What if his search for peace was just a coward's escape? What if he could never speak to his father again? He ran into the forest without telling the master. The letter shook in his hand like a dry leaf. Every step was another knot in his stomach. Thoughts multiplied like lightning crossing his inner sky. Amid the confusion, he stopped before the temple's pond. The water remained still, reflecting the gray clouds drifting above. Akira fell to his knees. "Where is the sky now?" he whispered, gasping. "Where is that clear space when pain cuts through me?" Silence was his only answer. But after a few seconds, he remembered the master's words. "Don't try to get rid of the clouds. Just remember that you are not them." He closed his eyes. He inhaled. He exhaled. He felt the anguish. He did not deny it. He felt the fear. He did not avoid it. He felt his love for his father, and he let it overflow without guilt. "This is fear," he whispered. "This is sadness. This is attachment. And I am the one who watches it." The emotions didn't disappear, but they stopped leading the way. Kira rose calmly. That very afternoon, he went to find the master. He found him by the orchard, slowly pruning the fruit trees. "I have to leave," he said without hesitation. Daizan didn't ask why. He just looked at him with a deep peace, as if he had been waiting. "Do you know what you'll do out there?" the master asked. "Yes, I'll care, not just for my father, but for my mind, for my emotions, not to control them, just not to get lost in them. I will remember the sky." Daizan nodded. "Then you're not leaving. You're simply extending the temple wherever you go." With a gentle gesture, he handed Akira something wrapped in cloth. It was a small mirror, round, perfect, frameless. "What is this for?" "For when you forget who you are. Look into it. You won't see a face. You'll see the sky behind everything." Kira kept it respectfully, and as he began the journey back home, he didn't feel less spiritual, just more human, more aware, more present, and above all, more sky than cloud. The journey back home was long and silent. Akira walked with measured steps, unhurried, as if every stone along the path deserved to be felt. The world seemed louder than at the temple. Wagons creaked, dogs barked, voices filled the air with everyday worries. But inside him, something remained still. It wasn't that he didn't feel. Quite the opposite. His heart pounded thinking of his sick father. But now he could tell the difference. The sky within him didn't stir with every breeze. Emotions were visitors, intense, yes, but passing. The watcher inside him remained serene. When he arrived at the village, he was greeted by the familiar scent of cooked rice and damp earth. Every corner spoke to him with the voice of childhood. The house where he grew up still stood, though weathered. The door creaked as it opened, and his mother appeared, her face worn by time and tears. No words were spoken, only a trembling embrace, and between them, an ancient river flowing again. "He's in his bed," she finally said, brushing hair from her forehead. "He hasn't spoken in 3 days, barely breathes." Akira entered his father's room. The man who once was strong as oak, stubborn as stone, and harsh as winter now seemed like an echo. Pale skin, half-open eyes, mouth slightly curved, as if whispering something beyond. Akira sat beside him. He did not cry. He did not speak. He simply looked and breathed. His father had been a difficult man, rigid, proud. His word was law. For years, Akira had felt he was never enough. Unseen, unheard. Resentment lodged in his chest like a thorn. But there, beside the broken body of the man who gave him life, there was no judgment, only humanity. "Father," he whispered softly, "I don't know if you can hear me. Maybe you're already crossing the bridge. But I want you to know this. For a long time, I wanted to run away from you, because it hurt not to be what you expected. But now I understand, you were also a cloud. Your shouting, your distance were just forms of fear, and fear does not define you." Slowly, Akira took out the mirror the master had given him. He held it before his father's sleeping face. Look, if you're still here, this doesn't reflect what you were. It reflects the sky that also lived in you, even if you didn't know it. Tears ran down his face, but they weren't sadness. They were compassion. They were understanding. They were homecoming. For 3 days and 3 nights, Akira cared for his father like one cares for a withered flower that still holds fragrance. He spoke to him, sang softly, read ancient poems, wiped sweat from his brow with a warm cloth. At dawn on the 4th day, his father exhaled effortlessly, like a cloud dissolving into blue, without struggle, without pain, only silence, only space. Akira did not scream. He did not collapse. He did not curse the sky. He bowed, joined his hands, and murmured, "Thank you." He didn't know to whom. Maybe to his father. Maybe to life. Maybe to the sky that held it all. But gratitude flowed like clear water. And while family gathered to mourn, neighbors arrived with flowers, and grief took shape, Akira stayed centered, inhabiting that space where everything is born and everything returns. He hadn't turned to stone. He felt everything, but he was no longer what was felt. He was the one who felt. He was the one who watched. He was the sky. After the funeral, the house fell into silence. The family returned to their routines. His mother moved slowly through her tasks, as if walking inside a thick dream. Grief filled the air, not with screams or wails, but more like a whisper that slipped along the walls, sat at the table, and slept in the corners. Akira stayed a few more days. He helped with the rice, tended the garden neglected during months of illness, and talked with his younger brother at night when the pain felt strongest. But amid it all, every gesture was also a practice. Every emotion that surfaced, anger, nostalgia, exhaustion, love, was a cloud crossing his inner sky. One night, his mother asked him, "How do you stay so peaceful?" He smiled, looking at her tenderly. "I'm not peaceful all the time. I just don't fight what I feel anymore. I simply watch it and let it pass." She lowered her gaze, silent tears falling without permission. "Sometimes I feel so much I overflow," she said. "I get scared. I hate myself for what I didn't say. I drown in guilt, son." Akira gently took her hands. "You are not the guilt, mother, nor the fear, nor the pain. You are the one who feels it and sees it. You are bigger than that." She shook her head, as if she couldn't believe it, as if those words were meant for someone else. But Akira insisted, his voice steady and soft. "You are the sky, mother. Everything else is just clouds." She broke down in tears, and without saying more, he held her as if his arms were also embracing the little girl she once was. A frightened child, a weary woman, a mother who had only done the best she could. And in that moment, through tears, something was released. Not just in her, but in him too. Because healing isn't erasing. Healing is seeing all that was with new eyes and continuing to love. The next day, Akira walked to the top of the hill behind the village, where as a child he used to hide to watch the horizon. He sat down, closed his eyes. He listened. The wind, the birds, his own thoughts still whispering. "Today I feel sadness," he told himself, "and that's okay. Today there are memories, and that's okay. Today there is a little peace, and that's okay too." Nothing was good or bad. Everything was passing through, and he was the space that held it all. When he stood up, the sky was covered with clouds. Gray, slow, deep, but Akira smiled, because now he knew that even if he couldn't see the blue, it was always there. It hadn't been a sudden change. nor an awakening. It had been a slow, loving, steady remembering. I am not what passes through me. I am the one who watches it pass. I am the sky. A month later, Akira returned to the temple. The same path, the same mountain, but he was no longer the same. Not because the world had changed, but because he no longer clung to anything. He wasn't wiser, nor holier, just more present. Master Daizan sat by the pond, tossing breadcrumbs to the fish. When he saw the young man approach, he said nothing. He simply looked at him, and in that gaze was a welcome, an embrace, and a deep understanding that needs no words. Akira sat beside him. They both looked at the water. They both remained silent. "I buried my father," Akira finally said. "And you found yourself again," the master replied. The wind gently stirred the willows. The pond remained still, reflecting the sky and its clouds. "I saw many clouds down there," Akira said. "Pain, fear, love, memories. They passed through me. Some days I felt lost. And what did you do?" "I let them pass. I cried sometimes. I laughed other times. But I always returned to the space that watches them. I didn't push them away. I didn't deny them. I just saw them." Daizan nodded. A faint smile appeared on his face, as if he heard an old melody playing once again. "That's all. There is no other secret. To see without attachment. To feel without owning. To be without defending." Akira pulled the small mirror the master had given him from inside his robe. He held it in his hands and looked at it for a moment. "I don't need this to remember anymore," he said, "because now I know I don't need to search for myself. When I stop searching," the master took the mirror and placed it on a stone beside the pond. "May others find it when their time to remember comes." A cloud passed over the sun, briefly casting their faces in shadow. But it didn't matter. Neither cold nor light could disturb what was already awake inside them. "And now," Kira asked, "what does one do when they remember they are the sky?" Daizan gazed at the water. "You sweep the temple. You water the garden. You listen to those who suffer. You laugh with those who laugh. You live. That simple, that deep." Akira sighed, and in that breath centuries of burden drifted away. Later, while washing the lunch bowls, a wave of nostalgia passed through his chest. He felt it, he named it, and he let it go. While sweeping leaves in the courtyard, a rush of joy crossed him. He saw it too, and let it pass. Nothing stayed. Everything flowed. And with every emotion, he remembered, "I am the sky. Everything else is just clouds." That night, he sat again beneath the old plum tree. The moon was high. The stars twinkled like thoughts that needed no explanation. He closed his eyes, no longer chasing anything, no longer wanting to escape, just dwelling, a space, a witness, the sky, himself. And so, in the heart of the night, without words, without name, without fear, he awakened one last truth. Nothing was alien. Nothing was broken. Everything was in its place. Even the clouds. Even him. Even you who listen to this story. Because you too are the sky.